is the ABRI Breedplan technical officer in South Africa. She works for the Livestock Registering Federation, the LRF. And Izan came from Pretoria University. She herself is a girl that's been brought up on the farm. We don't hold it against her, but she comes from a big Brahman farm in the northern part of Namibia. So when we talk breed politics in the office, we steer clear of Izan because we know exactly what lies close to her heart. And then we're going to be joined by, just after that, by Derek Leroux. Derek, I think, started, we were very lucky as LRF. We did a trip as a group of us to Australia about 8 years ago. And I'd like to think that was what inspired Derek to see that he can also be one of the world's best breeders. And he came back with a renewed vigoration. And Derek started doing really well last year. And now you'll see that Derek is often in the media. He had the front page of the Landbou Weekblad last week. And his record keeping is also very, very strong and very, very good. If you look at all the bull prices, and I'll actually put something up on the chat group. So just some rules here, big paar reels. If you look on your window, normally at the bottom of your Zoom window, you'll see there's a menu, and you'll see there's something called participants. On the left-hand side, it'll say start video. What's nice about Zoom is the more people that joined, you don't use more internet. You're just using your portion of the internet. So you can see start video on the left-hand side. Now, what Izan normally does, and you guys are welcome to put your videos on if you want to. It's just the voices that we keep off. Maybe if some of you, there's Derek there. Maybe if some of you want to put your video on, then I'll do it with mine. You excuse me, I can see with the lockdown I haven't shaved for a while, so let me put my video on as well. And then you'll see participants on the bottom of your screen. Now, in that participants, if you look on the right-hand side, where all the participants are listed, you'll see they're going to start with Izan Deploy on the top. She's the host. And a few regulars here that we see, Heather Moorcraft. Welcome, Heather, from Queenstown. And then Nikki from Namibia, I see there, for example. Zitza, he's probably at Witbank, etc. Chupo, welcome to you as well. If you look at the bottom of that screen, or just start off with, on that screen, if you want to say something, you simply hover over the microphone and the video there, and you can unmute yourself and then say something. But easier, if you look at the bottom of that screen, you'll see there's a little option there that says raise hand. So if you've got a question, simply put up your hand and you raise your hand. Maybe let's just try that. All of you click on the raise hand. Let's see if you found that button. See if you can click on the button that says raise hand. I see Chris Wilson, you haven't got that right, Derek. As jy net jou hand kan opsit daarso. So that's at the bottom of the participant screen. You can raise your hand there. Dolf, ek sien jy dit ook nog nie reg kry nie. Okay, but so that's raise your hand. You switch your hand off by simply clicking on the raise hand button again, and then it takes your raise hand off. So if you can just take your hand off. So that's how you ask a question, and we like to have these things reasonably interactive. So please raise your hand, and if Izan asks a question, do you all understand? You'll see it says yes. If you feel Izan is going a little bit slow, you can click there, go faster. If you think she's going too fast, you can click there, go slower. So you can, to some extent, control the course this morning as well. Now, there's also a chat. So if you look at the menu bottom button where you saw your participants, right next to participants, you'll see the chat function. If you can click on that, it's got a YouTube video. If you click on that, for example, then you'll subscribe to our channel that we've created. We're creating 2 channels, one for all the Herdmaster videos and one for all the LRF videos, the videos we're doing now. So these, and Izan will be recording this meeting. You'll see the little red button next to her name, which means that this meeting is being recorded. So this goes onto the YouTube channel. So you can look at these YouTube videos at any time. So if you click on that little Zoom group chat, you'll automatically subscribe yourself to the Herdmaster channel. I'll in a second put up the LRF channel there as well, so that you automatically go into the right channel and you subscribe to that channel where all the videos are kept. Herdmaster SA, and then it says, I think, Livestock Registering Federation. Okay, so without further much ado, I'd like to have Izan come on and start giving you the first parts of the course. Thank you very much. And a warm welcome to all of you. Baie welkom aan julle almal.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the introduction, Michael. So I'm going to start off with just a short video on what Herdmaster is and why you should use Herdmaster. So we often receive the question of how do we keep record of all the information we need to keep record of on our animals, and how do we send them into the society? Now, one way to do that is to use a herd management software program like Herdmaster. And yeah, so I'm quickly going to share my screen and start the video. And afterwards, I'll go through the recording of the different traits and contemporary groups, etc. So you should be able to see my screen now.
Hi everyone, I am Janine from Herdmaster. I often get asked the question, what is Herdmaster and why should I use Herdmaster? Herdmaster is a herd management software program for both large and small stock, as well as stud and commercial. It can be loaded onto any Windows-based device, preferably not older than Windows 7. We have Jock Else, that is our support in Namibia, Mario B from Zimbabwe, and I am responsible for Southern Africa. Currently, Herdmaster is being used in more than 30 countries. Now, why should I use Herdmaster? All your animals are kept on one database. You can see both active and inactive animals. Data that can be recorded include mating, weights, traits, preg test, etc. You can load photos and documents onto a specific animal. There's no limit on the amount of animals that can be loaded onto your database. A function that is used a lot is the worksheet or filter, whereby you would group animals together, or you would specify criteria and the system would group the animals together, and those animals are then used as groups to enter data. We also make use of the crush site recording utility, whereby you will connect your scale and or reader via Bluetooth with your computer, and live data will then be entered directly into your Herdmaster program. You can also import Excel or CSV files. This is a Breedplan program and is 100% compatible with the Breedplan system, but data can also be sent to other genetic evaluation system providers. Training is provided throughout the country. There's also a help function in Herdmaster, as well as the videos that are available on our YouTube channel. Please see our contact information in the description box, and then I would just quickly like to show you one or two of the features in Herdmaster. So this would be your basic data entry screen. You can go to your animal list on the right. You will see your tag, date of birth, birth year, location. All these can be altered as to what you would like to see, and they can also be dragged if you would like them on another column spot. If you would click on an active worksheet, those are animals that are grouped together to work with. If I double click on an animal, you would see information that's related specific to this animal. You would see if he's still active or inactive, tag, mother, father, sex, date of birth. You can see on which location this animal is. Weights would be here, traits you would be able to see on this tab, as well as preg tests and matings. Another feature that's used quite a lot is the yard sheet, whereby this is already set up. I'm just going to process it, whereby you can select animals and what information you need, and this you can then print and give to whoever is going to work with the animals in the field and tell them this information is what I'm looking for. They can fill it in and bring it back to whoever needs to capture the data. Thanks for listening, and please see the description box for contact info.
Okay, so that's on Herdmaster. If you want any more information on Herdmaster, you can contact the LRF office. So I'm now going to...
Hierdie video gaan ek vir die animal details sien, to find out your animal list.
Need to stop this. Okay. So now I'm going to go to what you should measure and when you should measure it. I'm going to start to share my screen again. Okay, so in last week's course, we spoke about the breeding principles and EBVs and accuracies, etc. And we realized the need and can't get to the word now, the importance of data and data recording. And now we will look at what you should record and when you should record it, etc. So we often receive the question, so what should I record? And where should I start recording, etc. Now we have, last week we showed the LRF test plan and we went through it a bit. And I'm not going to go through this in detail today, but this is available from the societies, from the LRF office, and it exactly explains what you should record and when you should record it, how you should submit the data, etc. So it might be useful to get hold of the LRF test plan, and you can use this as a guideline for what you should record and when you should record it. Okay, so first off, when you do data recording, you need to register your calf at the society. Now there's different guidelines on registrations for the different societies, but for the Breedplan societies, there's 3 options of sending or registering animals with the society. The one is to do it online. When you log onto your login screen on Internet Solutions, you can register calves using that feature. And then the other option is to use the Excel spreadsheets supplied by the different societies, and you can then send them the Excel spreadsheet. The other option is to use a herd management software program such as Herdmaster, and then from the program you do your calf registrations. So what is important when you register your calves is, from a Breedplan perspective, you should also record your dead calves. This is important for your cow's fertility records, because if you do not register the calf, it seems as though she skipped a year, and that negatively reflects on her fertility. Then you should also record a calf if it was part of a twin, even if the twin or the other calf did not survive, because this is important for the analyses, to know if this calf was part of a twin, and then Breedplan will not directly compare this calf to single calves. Then if you record your birth weight, it is important to record your whole calf crop, not just the difficult births. You should record your birth weight within 24 hours of birth. It should be in kilograms to the nearest kilogram. And it's important to actually weigh the calf and not guess that it weighed 30 kgs or 25 kgs. If you do not actually measure it, please do not record it. And what is also important is to send in the birth weights of your dead calves as well. And we'll speak about the management groups a bit later on. But if the calf was born prematurely, you will put it in a separate management group for birth weight, or if the dam was sick before she gave birth. Then you have the calving E scores. It's a score from 1 to 6. 1, there's no difficulty, and 6 is a cesarean section. What is important when you record calving E's is that if you do not check your cows regularly, it does not make sense to record the calving E score. Because, for example, if you do not check them throughout the night and tomorrow morning there's a calf, you assume it was with no difficulty, but it might have required an easy pull, etc. So if you do not regularly check them, it's better not to record it. And if you want to record calving E's, it's best, or the information is more useful if there's a level of calving difficulty within the herd. Because if you only send in once, no difficulty for all your calvings, the information cannot be used. As you can remember previously, last week's course, we need to have variation within the traits that we record to actually calculate an EBV for it. Then if you do embryo transfers, it is very important that you need to send in the recipient dam information with the calf registration. You need to send in the breed or the breed type of the cow, her age, identification number if you have it. And this is important because Breedplan corrects for the breed of the recipient dam and the age of the recipient dam when they do the analysis. So if there's no recipient cow information, the calf's performance record will not be used. And it's also important to understand that ET calves will only be directly compared to other ET calves. They will not be compared directly to normal born calves. Okay, then you have your post-birth performance recording. You have your 200-day weight, your 400-day weight, and 600-day weights. So with 200-day weight, you should send it in between the age, or measure it between the ages of 80 and 300 days. So you don't have to tell the system when you send in the data that it is a 200-day weight. The system will see the age of the animal when the recording was taken and determine the age of the animal. And if it falls between 80 and 300 days, it will be a 200-day weight. You can send in more than one 200-day weight. The system will use the first two. But what is important to remember is to record these weights within contemporary groups. And we'll look at contemporary groups later on. But if you measure or weigh all of them the first time, you should weigh all of them the second time as well. 400-day weights weight between 301 and 500 days of age. 600-day weight between 500 and 900 days of age. So you should not weigh your animals when they are 200 days of age. You should weigh the group when they are around 200 days of age. So you need to weigh them within their contemporary group. It is also important to weigh your animals before they are treated differently. For example, if you castrate some of your bull calves, it is important to weigh them before you castrate them. Or when you do shows and you separate your show team, you should weigh them before you separate them. So sometimes it's difficult to determine what is the best time to weigh your contemporary group for this different traits. For this, Breedplan calculates suggested weigh dates for your calf crops, and this information can be you can ask the society to send you the suggested weigh dates for your specific calf crop. And they give you a suggested date, and then you can weigh your animals close to that specific date. This is not necessary, but this can help you to determine when is your contemporary group as big as possible. What is also important to understand is that Breedplan adjusts the weights to 200 days or 400 days, etc. So if you weigh your animal on 230 days of age, the system will correct this measurement to 200 days of age. Then the other post-birth performance recordings that you can do is hip height. I'm not sure if it is required by any of the breeds, but this is currently still a research trait that is related to frame score, etc. So you can do your hip heights. And then scrotal size is the trait used for male fertility. So you weigh it, or you measure it either with your 400-day weight or your 600-day weight. And it should be...
Zani, if I can come in here, I think before we go too fast, let's see if there are any questions. Let's see if there are any questions on the previous, because you've given us a lot of information. Let's see if there are any questions or comments from anybody out there.
Okay.
Het julle enige vrae? You can just unmute yourself or any observations. Derek, jy kan dalk vir ons 'n paar observasies gee want jy doen baie van hierdie rekordhouding.
Yes, ek wil net eers seker maak, can everybody hear me clearly? If you don't hear me clearly, please just raise your hand or give an indication in the chat. Yes, I think it's always important to realize that whatever you do, you need to consider how you're going to do it within your specific management on your farm. Izan mentioned regarding taking measurement, not every time the calf reaches the age of 200 days, but analyzing this as a whole. What this means for you as farmer in field is that basically you've got a weaning day, and that day is usually in around the mean value for the specific group. That means if you've got a calving season of say 90 days, that means that you'll probably have a slice of 45 to a side. And if you've got one day in which you're going to wean your entire calf crop, you're going to do it, say, in the middle. So you're going to have calves that's going to be 8.5 months of age, and you're going to have calves that's going to be 5.5 months age if you do it with a mean value of 7 months. And just out of farm management, it's much easier to do that. Then you can either do one group or you can do two mean values within the 45-day slice. What that means is, if it's a 90-day calving season, we're going to have a mean value in the first 45 days, and then we're going to have a mean value in the next 45 days. And but just to do it quite easily, if we've got one weaning day and we're going to wean the entire crop, that means that day each and every calf goes through the chute. It's going to be measured for weight. We're going to do a docility score on it. Usually try and coincide this with some of your inoculations. So it would mean that on our farm, the practice is that day is also the day that all the heifer calves will be given a shot of RB51. Usually we try and coincide this with some vitamin injections. And you can also do something like getting some hair samples, and you just put it into your hair, your DNA bank. So within whatever measurements you do, try and coincide it with the management of your specific farm. That means the cows are going to come in, we're going to weigh all of them, we're going to weigh all the calves, we're going to give the scores that we need to give. And this makes it much easier in terms of management, because the system is going to sort that out. The system will compensate for that calf being 5.5 months of age. What will usually happen is the weight that you're going to send in, the system's going to work that out, and he's going to be a bit more favorable towards that weight, and they're going to do a adjustment for the specific weight when they start to work with the information. So I think in that regard, it's just important to see whatever you need to do with Breedplan, understand the system, and then work out how best this would fit in with your specific management program on your farm. And then just make sure that you adhere to the minimum specifications and regulations put out by Breedplan for measuring specific traits.
Thanks a lot, Derek. Baie dankie, Derek. Are there any questions from the rest of you? Because this is a lot we've given you, and I'm sure there might be a question or two from some of you.
I see Dewald has his hand up. Dewald, daar in Namibia.
Good morning, guys. A quick question from my side. We usually wean or measure the 200-day weight when the youngest calf for the season reaches the 80-day mark. And obviously at that date, certain calves are physically weaned, taken away, or given nose rings, or whatever the case may be. What is a sensible date to take a second measurement? And because, I mean, at different dates, calves are then physically weaned. Is every weaning date where calves are taken away, does that represent a separate management group for that group of calves? Or can one wait till all of them have been physically weaned and then wean them or measure them again for a second 200-day weight?
Yes.
Carry on, Derek.
Yeah, no, Dewald, I think it's a very good question. I think the most important thing to consider is the intactness of a performance group. So if you were to say wean in two different management groups, you'll say you'll wean one section, and then the other section you've got two different types. Now, let's say they move on 3 or 4 months and we're still in that 80 to 300 day range, and we're going to do a second weaning weight measurement. It's just important to consider if some calves were treated differently than others. And then just, if there were, just add the first batch, say make a performance group of 1 and add the other to performance group 2, and perhaps use the first group as a different performance group, and the system is going to incorporate that. So it will adjust accordingly, and it will work it in within that accuracies. Usually with the second measurement, you obtain about 4 to 5% higher accuracy for that specific trade.
If I can come in here, in morning Dewald, môre Dewald, jy kan gerus in Afrikaans vra in jou moedertaal. Sê vir my, hoe lank is jou teelseisoen?
3 maande.
Okay, 3 maande.
Ja.
Ek dink soos Derek sê, die ideaal is dat om te sorg dat kalvers dieselfde behandeling gekry het. En so as jy van hulle speen en van hulle nie speen nie, is dit nie makliker om sommer hulle almal te speen terselfde tyd en dalk effens kleiner speenkalfgroep te hê en dalk 2 speenkalfgroepe hê as wat jy te veel in een groep probeer sit nie.
Ja, kyk, ek dink die ervaring wat ons het met dit is dat 'n ou gewoonlik kalvers het wat as jy nou 'n 3 maande dekseisoen soos ons het, dan so op 105 dae gewoonlik is al die kalvers dan gebore. So jy weet, jy gaan kalvers hê wat letterlik mos nou 81 dae oud is of 82 dae oud of wat ook al hoe dit dan nou val, en dan gaan jy diere hê wat al 'n stewige stuk potensieel oor 200 dae is. Nou dan, jy weet, afhangende van hoe die dekseisoen mos nou gewerk het, gaan 'n ou heel moontlik 'n groot lot van jou kalvers gaan jy wel ten minste dan met derde of hopelik meer gaan jy al speen op daai dag wat jy hulle fisies wegvat van die koei af of wat ook al in die tegniek is wat jy gebruik. Maar daarvan af raak die koei mos nou amper meer belangrik. So jy weet, as 'n kalf dan ons gebruik 190 dae as 'n, kom ons sê, 'n fisiese speen ouderdom. So as 'n ou dan nou die volgende keer die kalvers wegvat, dan is daar miskien nou net 5 of 6. En die volgende keer is daar miskien 10 en jy weet die tipe van goeters tot jy dan nou 3 maande later basies almal fisies weggevat het van die koei af. Jy weet, en op daai stadium gaan van ons billetjies gaan dan na die NFI stasies toe. Daai gewigte gebruik ons eintlik aan vir ten minste nog potensieel 200 dae gewig en dan definitief ten minste 400 dae gewigte.
Derek, jou opinie?
Ja, ek dink uit 'n praktiese oogpunt uit het ek nie 'n probleem daarmee nie, want julle het nog steeds een fisiese dag gehad waarin julle die hele groep se kalvers geweeg het. Ek sou ten sterkste aanbeveel dat die koeie op dieselfde dag geweeg word, of ten minste 'n dag daarna. Ek het nie 'n probleem nie. Ek dink net die enigste ding waarna julle moet kyk is, onthou dis binne in julle bestuurstruktuur en daar's nie 'n probleem as dit vir julle werk, dan werk dit. Julle moet net vir daai volgende groep miskien net op 'n stadium oorgaan na 'n ander performance groep toe. Die eerste groep gaan met ander woorde presies dieselfde wees. Julle vat die totale slotsom van die kalvers en julle gee vir hulle een performance groep waar jou eerste kalf, of jou jongste kalf net oor die 80 is en jou oudste kalf sal miskien dan in die orde van seker hier by 200 wees, 185 na 200 toe. En hulle is almal geweeg. En onthou die stelsel gaan outomaties julle daar ook in 2 performance groepe, 2 tot 3, hy gaan 3 performance groups indeel eintlik. So hy gaan die eerste klompie kalvers vat en dan gaan hy so, hoe dit gaan werk is, die eerste dag wat jou kalf gebore is, 45 dae later eindig daai spesifieke performance groep. Daai klompie kalvers gaan met mekaar vergelyk word. So, as dit ek persoonlik was, dan sou ek miskien ek dink nie daar gaan so groot waarde wees om die hele groep in geheel te weeg nie. Ek dink dit is 'n baie goeie ding en ek dink julle sal baie goeie data uit dit uitkry, maar die waarde daarvan is dat julle gaan eintlik 2 tot 3 performance groepe hê wat bymekaar geweeg is. Maar vir die tweede observasie sal ek miskien aanbeveel om die oudste kalf te vat en 45 dae af te trek en in gedagte te hou dat daai 45 dae range is wat gebruik gaan word om daai klompie kalvers binne in daai range te evalueer. So, ek sal miskien, as ek iets kan aanbeveel, dan sal ek sê, wanneer julle wel 'n klompie kalvers probeer wegvat, probeer om daai range van julle 45 dae te maak. So, vat die oudste kalf, trek 45 dae af op die ouderdom, dis die datum, en wanneer julle fisies kalvers wegvat van die koeie af, probeer om dit binne in daai range te doen, en dan kan julle weer van daar af die volgende pakkies in mekaar insit, want dit sal vir julle uit 'n data verwerkingsoogpunt uit die grootste voordeel gee.
Dis 'n baie goeie vraag, Dewald, want jou uitdaging op die oomblik daar's 'n baie groot variasie tussen die jongste en die oudste, né? Dewald?
Dewald, net as 'n vraag, maak dit vir jou sin wat ek sê?
Ek sien ons het ek het gou Dewald hier unmute. Ek sien Dewald probeer homself mute en unmute. Dewald, jy's daar? Môre Dewald.
Okay, ek dink Michael, terwyl ons wag, gaan ek solank die vraag vat van Pieter en dan kyk ons wat hy sê.
Dis reg. Okay, Peter, you got your hand up for a long time. Is that Peter Moulton by any chance?
Izan, could you possibly just unmute Peter or
Michael is currently host, so he should do it.
Yeah, I have unmuted Peter. Peter, you there?
Yes. Okay.
Is that Peter Moulton? Yeah, is that Peter Moulton?
I think the biggest thing we got to go in cattle scales. Repeating me, what is it?
We hear you clearly, Peter. Just carry on.
Okay. I think from our shop and selling scales, I would rather have that you weigh 10 or so calves, but weigh them immediately afterwards and get that weight and see if those calves are correctly. I think what we all do at a scale, one or two stockmen get on this guy and that guy, but that's not reliable. You weigh in a 200 or estimated calf, or you weigh 1,000.
Peter, your line is not very clear from PE, I notice.
Okay. What can I do to help it? Is there anything
You just need a... Are you on your phone, Peter?
No, on the phone. On the.
You were saying weigh smaller groups because of the accuracy of the scale?
Yeah. Thank you, Michael. So in other words, just get the scale accurate before you start
weighing. Peter, you're coming and going. Unfortunately, all these things are applicable on how much, how good your internet is.
Okay.
Okay, but if I may come in here, Michael, I think the biggest thing that Peter is saying is that it's very important out of a physical measurement section to ensure that the scale is reliable and that it's calibrated correctly. Each scale has its own specific region, and then it's always good to see where your scale lies. So if you know you're going to be measuring calves and they're probably going to be in the range of say 150 to 300 kilograms, maybe get some people on the scale and just verify it using a second scale and see if the scale is within 1% of where it should be. I think the most important thing is the system will be able to compensate if there's a problem on the scale. It's just important that you need to do all the weighing on the same scale. So don't within midway go to another scale and then start using a different scale because the first scale broke. Remain on the same scale. Halfway in, if you've got a big load to do, perhaps halfway in, ensure that it's still calibrated correctly and it's still giving you the same measurement if you've got 3 or 4 guys on there. And then you'll quickly have an idea. So the key aspect within using that specific thing is that within the group that you're measuring for that day, ensure that what the output is given as that there's no deviation in the output relative to where it should be. So just ja, van tyd tot tyd uitknet daai skaal en maak seker dat hy reg is.
Does that sum up where you were coming from basically?
I've got a problem that you weigh humans on a cattle scale. because they don't stand like an animal does.
But you can tell them to stand like an animal does.
Look, I think Peter, Derek is right. If the scale is 4 or 5 kgs out, when it comes to recording, we adjust for that 5 kgs in the system, because we know we're getting the relative ranking of the animals within that contemporary group rather than the actual weights of the animal. To us, it's about the ranking of the animals in the contemporary group rather than the actual weights. So if a scale is slightly out, it's not going to affect your breeding values at all.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, then I got Chupo. You got a question there?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you clearly, Chupo.
Yeah. Regarding the embryo transfer, you said earlier on that the embryo transfer cows are not compared to the conventional born cows. What could be the reason behind that?
Izan, can you come in there?
Okay, so the reason behind that is the breed of the cow will affect the milk supply, etc. So, for example, you can't compare calves, normal calves born from Brahman cows with calves from an recipient dam, a Simmental recipient dam. So that's why they only compare the ET calves together, so that they can adjust for the cow's effect on the growth of the calf.
Okay. No, thank you. Well understood. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, Izan, I think we hijacked a little bit of your course, but I think these are the questions that producers enjoy asking because they understand a lot more practically on the farm.
Yeah, that's 100%. So if we continue with scrotal size, it is important to, when you measure your scrotal size, you should do it on the day that you actually weigh the animal as well. So do it with your 400-day weight or your 600-day weight if you do it at a later stage. Then you have your docility scores as well, 1 to 5. For more information, you can contact your society on the specific criteria for the different scores. But what is also important with your docility scores is that you need to do your whole calf crop. It does not make sense to just score the ones that are a bit wild and give them a score, because the system cannot compare them to the rest of the group. Okay, so then we get to the mature cow weight.
If I can just stop you there.
Yes.
The Brahman are always different. So the Brahman docility score goes from 1 to 9.
Yes, that's correct.
And Zitza will tell you, I see he's on here as well, they now have a EBV for docility. And docility is highly heritable, 40 to 50%. So within 2-3 generations, you can make a very big difference in your herd if you select for docility. So if you're a breed that, I know Limousin in Australia, for example, or Derek, they have for 15 years now docility EBV. If you've got any, and I think every breed has got some not so docile animals, it's very easy then to put an EBV together for docility, and then you make very big genetic progress. It is easier to make progress from bringing animals in with the genetics than it is to cull animals out because they got the phenotypic problem. Just think about that. Sorry, Izan.
That's fine, thank you. So with mature cow weight, it is important to remember that this is the weight that you take when the cow weans her calf, not when you when she gives birth to a calf. So it's not the the weight of the cow at birth of her calf, but at the weaning of her calf. It is important to take this weight within 2 weeks from when you actually weigh the weaning weight of the calf. The system is not going to analyze it if you send in the mature cow weight or weigh the mature cow weight a month or 2 later. So you should do it as close as possible to when you actually wean the calf and weigh them for weaning. Then what is also important is that the system will only analyze mature cow weights if you submit them or weigh them before the age of 6 years. So for example, if you buy in cows and they have not previously been weighed for mature cow weight, and you now start to weigh them for mature cow weight, but her first weight was only submitted after she was 6 years old, the system will not analyze the data. In this year we received requests from 2 or more breeders saying that they send in the mature cow weight, but it's not showing on internet solutions, and that's the reason why. So mature cow weight is an indicator of the cow's feed requirements. So normally, or in most cases in South Africa, breeders select for the bit smaller cows as they need more or need less feed to maintain them and to get them into a good condition after calving again. So then we get to the female fertility trait. Breedplan uses days to calving as a female fertility trait. Days to calving is the period between the first date that a cow was exposed to a bull in the mating season, so the bull in date, and then the date that the calf was born after that. So the main variation is between the bull in date and the conception date, because gestation length can change a bit, but normally it's quite fixed. So normally your days to calving, the shorter the days to calving is preferable, and this identifies females that reach puberty early, conceives early in the breeding season, calve early in the season, and then rejoins quickly after calving, and then deliver a calf after a short gestation length as well. So it identifies your more fertile cows. What is important when you want to measure for days to calving is that you actually measure or record your mating lists. So you record the bull in date and then the bull out date. And this can also only be recorded when you actually make use of a breeding season. And you should record all of your animals, both your cows and your heifers. And then afterwards, if the cow did not conceive or did not produce a calf, you should then give the cow a fate code or a disposal information, the date and the reason. So this is also important when you submit your mating list records, to also fill in the days to calving fate codes. Here's a list of the fate codes. What is important for the system is the B's and the F's. The one sold as breeding female. So this cow disappears from your your breeding herd, but this was not due to her being infertile, but you sold her as breeding stock, so there's nothing wrong with her fertility. And then F, the one saying not in calf, so you called her because she did not conceive. So that's the two that is quite important for the system, but there's a whole list of them. What is important to remember is that these days to calving fate codes are different from the normal fate codes when you cull animals from your herd. So these ones will not deregister your cows. If you want to deregister them, you need to fate them as normal. Then there's a few other traits that you can record. For example, your RTU scanning. The nice thing about RTU scanning is that it gives you information on your animal's carcass, even though the animal was not slaughtered, so you do it on live animals. It should be, your animal should be scanned by accredited scanners. There's a number of scanners from the Agricultural Research Council that scan animals for our breeders. And you should do the scannings between the age of 300 and 800 days of age. And again, you should do them together with your weights. So you do it with your 400-day weight or your 600-day weight. Then you also have your carcass measurements that you can submit, and you can also send in samples to a meat quality laboratory for testing as well. So these are after slaughter traits that you can also record. Then you have your feed efficiency. In South Africa, we record it as residual feed intake. So it is the difference between the actual feed intake of the animal and the expected feed intake of the animal. When you want to do feed efficiency testing, you send them to, within a contemporary group, importantly, to a test station. There's a number of ARC test stations around the country where you can send them to. Most of them still have the Callan gate system, and you send in the animals when they are between 180 and 280 days at the start of the adaptation. And then you have your growth safe systems as well. There's one at the ARC campus at Irene that is currently not open for commercial use, but maybe in years to come it will become available. Then there's the growth safe system in Namibia, Gentex Sol, where the Namibian guys can send in their animals for testing. And then there's a new growth safe system in KwaZulu-Natal, which will be open for testing, commercial testing, somewhere this year. I'm not 100% sure when. So yeah, so you can send in your animals for feed efficiency testing. We see that feed efficiency is becoming more and more important, and it will become an important trait as we move forward. From the Breedplan breeds, Brahman received their first feed efficiency EBVs last year. So they have a feed efficiency EBV currently?
Izan, if I can interrupt you there,
Okay.
just ask people, why do we measure RFI, residual feed intake, and not food conversion ratio? Or why do we not use food conversion ratio in the stud industry anymore? And we actively dissuade people from using food conversion ratio. Why would that be? Anybody venture an answer? Okay. I think that's important because in the past we used to work a lot on food conversion ratio, but scientists in the last 20 years have worked out that food conversion ratio is a ratio of intake divided by average daily gain. And the correlation between that average daily gain or food conversion ratio and average daily gain is about 70%. So if you're selecting animals on food conversion ratio and you're simply selecting the more efficient animals on food conversion ratio, because of the high correlation or association with weight or gain, you're simply making your cow herd bigger and bigger as well. So you'll find your breeds that grow faster also have a better food conversion ratio. So your late maturing breeds will always have a better food conversion ratio, for example, than your early maturing breeds. So then scientists said, if we can go and split the two components, we can, for the same amount of feed or for the same amount of gain, work out which one is then eating less feed. So we're taking body maintenance into account, and we taking the gain into account, but adjusting gain so that everybody's fairly compared in that contemporary group. And then say, if we got the adjustment for the gain, which one then eats less, then we have a measure of feed, residual feed intake, or feed intake as we call it today. So residual feed intake is completely independent of average daily gain. So if you select on feed efficiency, you're not necessarily making your cows bigger. But now the next question you're going to ask me, which you should ask me, is, but we want to actually make cows grow faster. So what we do is we put those things into what we call an index, and I think in 3 weeks' time or 2 weeks' time, we'll be talking about selection on index, where you then say, we want the animals that eat less but gain more. But we've split feed efficiency out of the food conversion ratio. So you'll see that most genetic evaluation systems today don't use food conversion ratio as a measure. Food conversion ratio is very useful in the feedlot for feedlotters to compare how they're doing, but it's not a useful trait in the cow herds. Any questions so far? Peter, I thought you would have a question there, but that's fine. No questions? Simply put up your hand or unmute yourself. Derek, did it mark for your sin?
Yes, Michael, I completely agree. I think the most important thing to realize is that you take into account that animal's individual input that's needed for upkeep, and if we've got lower upkeep and we've got better efficiency, then we're going forward.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so thanks, Izan.
Okay, so when you record all of these different components, you need to send them into the society so that they can be included in the EBV run or the Breedplan analysis. So you send it in different ways. You can send it in using the Excel spreadsheets provided by the society, or you can use the herd management software program such as Herdmaster to send in the data. Or if you only have a few animals, you can use the online system to send in the data as well. Okay, so now we get to contemporary groups. So we spoke about when you should measure different traits. But what is important to remember is that all of these traits need to be recorded within their contemporary groups. Now, Breedplan can only directly compare animals within contemporary groups, as they need to take out the non-genetic effects or the environmental effects that could possibly influence the performance of the animals. So contemporary groups are animals that were born together and that was treated together on the same farm and had the same chance of performing than the other animals within the contemporary group. So the basis on which EBVs work is that they compare animals within the contemporary group. So they compare a specific animal's performance with the rest of the animals in the group. And what is important to remember is the larger the contemporary groups, the more informative they are. So you need to do whole herd recording. It is problematic if you only submit a selection of your contemporary group's performance recorded. So for example, if you only select your best animals and send in their records, it leads to some bias in the estimation. So if we, for example, look at a sheet of weaning weights for a group of 10 animals, in the first column, you will see that you send in all the 200-day weights of the contemporary group, and they average to 233 kilograms. Then you may want to only submit the records of the animals that perform better, and you discard the lighter ones, and you send in only a subsection of the data. The average then calculates to 252 kilograms. So for example, if we look at animal A7, he weighed 237 kilograms. When you compare that in the first group with all of the animal's details or records, he was 4 kilograms heavier than the average. So he will most probably have a positive EB or a better EBV. Then if you only send in a subsection of the data, his weight is then 15 kilograms lighter than the average. So this will negatively affect his EBV. So the best thing to do is to send in all the records of all of your animals. Otherwise, it leads to some bias, and you actually, by sending in only the heavier animals, you influence this specific animal's EBV negatively. So how does Breedplan construct contemporary groups? So they look at different pieces of information. So first off, if we look at the right, the automatic ones, is that they look at your herd. So your herd number is included, then the calving year, then the sex of the animal. So bull calves are only directly compared to bull calves, female calves only directly compared to female calves. Then twins and single animals. So your twins are not directly compared to single-born calves. Then you have the birth status, your ET calves. As we previously said, they are not directly compared to the rest of the group. And then you have your dam age as well. So normally your calves born from heifers are not directly compared to the older cows. Then the next one is the calf age. Derek spoke about this a bit. So Breedplan groups animals together within slice groups. So if we look at birth weight, the slice group is 45 days. So for example, if your first calf was born on the 1st of June, they will count 45 days to the 15th of July and only directly compare the calves born from the 1st of June to the 15th of July directly to each other for birth weight. 200-day weight is still a 45-day slice group. And then for your 400-day weight and the traits thereafter, they increase the slice group to 60 days. So now they compare animals born from the 1st of June to the 30th of July together. So they do this to exclude the seasonal effects. So for example, you can't compare a December-born calf with a April-born calf just because of the felt quality, etc. So they do this to exclude the seasonal effects. Then you have the weight date. So this is the date that you use as the date that the record was taken, and when you submit this to the society, they use this date to group the animals together. So for example, if you weigh your contemporary group on the same day, they should have the same weight date. If they have two different dates, the system will automatically split them in two different contemporary groups. So make sure that weight date for your contemporary group is the same. Then we have the breeder-defined management groups. Derek spoke about this also in some detail. So this is, for example, if animals were treated differently from the rest of the group, you should indicate this to the system, because the scientists at Breedplan does not know what is going on your specific farm. So they do not know you fed this group of animals some extra feed, or they do not know if an animal was severely ill and did not grow as it should have, etc. So you have different management groups. So you can use different numbers from 1 to 9 or letters from A to Z, maximum of 3 characters. Any combination, any character, does not matter. Yeah, it just matters that you give a different code to a different group. If it is left blank, the contemporary group is considered one management group. So yeah, as I said previously, you indicate if the animal was sick and it affected his performance, or if you have a show group and you fed them extra feed, or for example, if you give creep feed to just a portion of your contemporary group before weaning, you will indicate this when you submit the weaning weight data. So what is important is to keep your management group as large as possible. So you do this by doing whole herd recording, by keeping your mating and calving season as compact as possible. And you should weigh the animals in one management group on the same day. And you AR your cows so that they calve with the natural mating cows. And if you have 2 herds run on the same property, you should tell the society to link them on the system. So this is in case you and your son have two different herds, but they're on the same property. You should tell the system to link them so that the animals can be put into one contemporary group. So if you make use of the Excel spreadsheets, you fill in the management group in column G. And in this case, they showed that this animal is a show animal and he was treated differently. So they gave him a management group code. If you make use of herdmaster, when you fill in your weights, there's an option of entering a performance group, and you can change it over here as well. So then you give a different code to the different groups. Okay, any questions at this stage?
Just an observation from my side is on. I see Heather Moorcraft there. Heather's actually also a Hereford farmer, as I said, near Queenstown. And the Herefords in America started the thing of whole herd reporting. And people had to sign, every farmer had to sign a document to say they subscribe to recording everything. And interestingly enough, they actually discarded all the data, previous data that they'd ever collected out of their genetic evaluation program, and only started using complete herd recording data. So that's, not sure if you knew about that, Heather, but the American Herefords actually took the lead when it came to complete herd recording, and everybody now follows them. Any more questions, guys? Chupo? Zitza? Any? Jy doen goed hier aan. As op oomblik nie baie vrae nie.
Okay, so we can continue with genetic linkage. So we said that animals are only directly compared within their contemporary group, but Breedplan can connect these contemporary groups or compare animals over contemporary groups and herds and countries, etc., by making use of genetic linkage. So genetic linkage can be created via the cows and the sires, but normally it's through sires. So common sires used in different herds and contemporary groups. So this enables Breedplan to compare over contemporary groups, over years, etc. And it is used to exclude the effect of the sire. So if we look at an example of two different contemporary groups, we can see them as three different farms with three different bulls progeny in the different herds. So in the first case, we have sire A. The average performance of his progeny is around 300 kgs for 400-day weight of age, and then sire B's progeny around average 370 kilograms, and sire C's progeny average around 330 kgs. If we only have this information, it seems as though sire B is the better bull when you look at 400-day weight. But if we look at the different farms, we see that contemporary group 1 or farm 1 is, for example, in the Northern Cape with poor nutrition, contemporary group 2 with good nutrition, and contemporary group 3 has average nutrition. So if we did not have a genetic linkage, comparing the progeny over these three farms will be difficult. But now we add, for example, an AI sire as a link sire, and we can use this sire as a reference or a benchmark to compare the other sire's progeny to. So, for example, in contemporary group 1, with sire A's progeny at an average of 300 kgs, in this same environment, Admiral, the link sire, also had progeny, and they averaged at 280 kilograms. So sire A's progeny was on average 20 kilograms heavier than the link sire's progeny. Then you go to contemporary group 2 with sire B's progeny at an average of 370 kilograms compared to the average of the linked sire at 390 kilograms. So in this case, sire B's progeny performed 20 kilograms worse than the average of Admiral's progeny. So if we look at contemporary group 3, in this case, sire C's progeny was on average 45 kilograms more than the average of Admiral's. So then, if we now have this benchmark or this reference sire, we can now rank these sires across herds and contemporary groups. So we say that sire C ranked in the first place as his progeny performed the best compared to the link sire, then sire A, then the link sire Admiral, and then sire B is in 4th place. And initially, when we did not have all the other information, we placed sire B in the first place as his progeny, their phenotypic records were heavier than the other two bulls' progeny. So this is also important to see that you cannot directly compare animals just on their phenotype. You need to have more information on them to compare them on a genetic level. So just, I borrowed this slide from Thijs Meyer. It indicates how the effectiveness of data increases as you increase contemporary group size, as well as the number of sires used within a contemporary group. So you see, as the contemporary group increases, the effectiveness of the data increases, but there's not a large variation between a contemporary group size of 10 and a contemporary group size of 20. But the effectiveness of the data on the sire's EBV increases as you add more sire's progeny within the contemporary group. So normally we say that the minimum contemporary group size to give you effective data is a group size of 10 with a minimum of 2 sires progeny represented within that contemporary group. But for the BGP project, they recommend that you try to test animals within a contemporary group of 12 animals with 3 sires included in that contemporary group, with one of the sires being a linked sire or an AI sire used by other herds as well. So this is just to show you if you have bigger contemporary groups and you have progeny from different sires within that contemporary group, the usefulness of the data increases. Okay, and that's my story. So if you have any questions at this stage, you can ask them now, and then we can give over to Derek. So any questions?
We get a lot of value if you guys ask questions, because I think often questions, other people might have a question, and there's no such thing as a dumb question or a difficult question or an easy question. If you have any questions, please ask Izan. We really here to see if we can answer any of the questions. Dewald, jy het baie keer 'n vraag of twee, maak hierdie goeders vir jou sin. I think if I can just make a comment, and as Izan showed there, you don't have to have these huge contemporary groups. If you sit with a contemporary group of 5 animals with 2 bulls, you still got a lot of useful information. So if you've got 3 progeny from the one bull and 2 progeny from the other bull, you still got lots of valuable information. So you don't have to have a big herd to make breeding values work for you. I just want to put that out there. But then you can't be the British either that has 2 cows on your farm, and the one calves in July and the other one calves in November, and think you're going to make genetic progress.
I think something we can perhaps also add, Michael, is that something to consider is that Breedplan also considers different seasons. So if you've got a linkage sire like Izan told us there, like Admiral, it's also important to use that sire over different seasons as a linkage sire. So you would want to use it this year and next year as well. Preferably over 3 years, you'll get a very stable set of data from that. And it links different seasons, because this year we've got a great season. We've got a lot of grass, given the quality is perhaps not as good, but we've got a lot of roughage. And then in the next season, we've got a bit of a drought, and it'll have a considerable effect on the performance that's given for sires. But if we've got a linkage sire that's AI over both seasons, and we've got new sires that's put next to him, we will get good information for the specific season. And Breedplan will do this automatically. It will also do it for different divisions within a country. So if it's, say, for instance, dry down in the Eastern Cape, and we've got a good season up here, it will compensate for both of them if we as a herd also incorporate linking sires over seasons within a herd.
Absolutely right. No, thank you very much for that, Derek. So Derek, I think let's go on to you now, and you just want to work through your Completeness of Performance report and show producers. You also would have started with probably a 1 or 2 star, and over time worked at it, and now you can proudly say people can buy bulls from me with confidence.
Yes, thank you, Michael. I think I just quickly want to start off with 1 or 2 things. It's a bit of housekeeping in that. I'm going to quickly show you a path in which you can generally get a lot of the information that we're going to use now. And the best portal is always to use this AgriBSA page. There's also a link to this from the LRF's page. And you've got all your different breed bases here. So if we go to South Africa, you'll quickly be able to get to all the different pages for each one of the breeds. From there, we can do the specific breeds advertisement page or their promotional page, and you can get some information on that. And this is for different breeds, and be able to look at what they're doing there. And then we can also go to that specific breeds database. So if we go to the internet solutions for that specific breed. You'll excuse, I'm going to use my own herd as an example. I discussed it with Izan, and there's specific reasons for that, because we're lacking some data that we did not put into the system, and I'm quickly going to show you on how we're going to do that. So if you reach this page, and it's different for each specific herd, you'll see the colors differ a bit, but the context is about the same. You can go to download files. So I'm not going to assist you with any of the inquiries. I'm sure Izan is going to have that in a later course. But if we go to download files, we basically get this page over here, and we can use it to sign into your specific account. And the society will post specific information for you there, and you'll be able to log in. Sometimes it does take a while, but basically after you've logged in, this page will open up for you, and you'll be able to download some of the certificates and see some outlier reports and published sire reports. And I think the most, we're not going to handle Breedplan report, but Completeness of Performance is the one report, and this is generated basically at the end of the run. So each month they do a processing of all the data that's put into the system, and after that they publish the new report for you. If you have not put in, if you've not put new data into the system, your report will not be regenerated. So that means if we only put information or data into the system, say in January, we would still only have January's report, but we did submit some information in April. So it did do an update for us on that report. Then you can also ask, and this from the society, is a Completeness of Performance diagnostic report, and we're going to talk a little bit on that. It'll be short. So you basically just download those two reports, and I'm going to open it up for you right now.
You'll be pleased to know I've never seen that, Derek. Diagnostic.
I'll get to that, Michael.
No
or do you want me to start with it? I can start with it.
Start with your report, Derek.
Okay, let's start with that. I'm going to do the diagnostic report for you guys quickly, but it's not going to be a lot. I just want to change screens that we're sharing here now, and share a different screen with you guys. Okay, so this Completeness of Performance report is the report that Breedplan automatically generates for you to have an indication of how much data have been submitted. And it analyzes a bit on what you've submitted into the system. And it's a good way to go back and see, all right, but within my internal reports, I see I've captured this and this data, but the system does not have this data. And this could be, you could perhaps not have submitted it, the email could not have gone through, perhaps there was a bit of a problem on the database with the society, but all those things can be managed. At the end of the day, you want the data that you captured to have been submitted to Breedplan, should have been captured within it, and that the genetic evaluation that's done was done by using that specific data. All right, so we start off, it'll explain some information for you on how it does the capturing, on what's important. I'm going to leave this for you guys to read through. I just want to show you something here, and that's sex ratio. So it indicates the ratio of male calves to female calves. For example, a sex ratio of 0.95 indicates 95 males have been recorded for every 100 females. This is important because you will see that a lot of herds do not, for instance, record all their males, and that is something which you should consider not doing. As Inzan pointed out, it's very important to complete herd recording. We do put value on the ratio of sex males to females. I'm going to explain this to you guys much more deeply now, but it shows you weight statistics and how it's measured and indicated, some carcass information, some fertility, and we're going to get around to that quite now. I just want to show you the last page first, and I think it's important to understand how information is given on this, and then we're going to go to that specific traits. So we see that the system divides each and every part of this report into sections. So we've got the animal section here, and then we've got the weight section. We've got carcass information, we've got birth information, fertility, and then other information. So basically what happens is with the scoring system, and I think you all have heard about it. So Breedplan basically gives a star recognition to a herd in terms of the completeness of information that they submit or record. And the higher the star, of course, means the more complete your information is. And this slightly differs from breed to breed, but basically they just calculate a numeric score that's given for the completeness, and that is what is used to determine your specific star rating. So if we just quickly look at this, for instance, for animal information, we've got date of birth, we've got sire information, dam information, sex ratio, and recipient dam. So basically that means if we've got the date of birth, and I'm going to use 100 calves, if we've recorded 100 calves in that specific season, and the max score that we can obtain is a 12.5, and we have submitted the date of birth for all 100 calves, you will receive 10 points, or 100, and that would be multiplied by 1.25, so you will receive that 12.5. If we only submit, say, 50% of the information, in other words, only 50 of the 100 calves date of birth is submitted, we will get 1, which is multiplied by 1.25, which means we will get a total score of 1.25 for date of birth. The sire, has the sire been submitted for the calf? Is the dam submitted? And then that specific ratio, and I'm going to get to that now. I just want to show you guys, we've got weaning at weight, we've got 200-day weaning weight, 400, 600, and the mature cow weight. And their specific values. We've got eye muscle area, we've got our rib fat, our rump fat, and our intermuscular fat. At birth information, we've got the AI date, a very important date so that we can understand gestation length. We've got calving ease. That score that is on put up there are 1 to 6, and then the specific birth weight. So you'd see we don't have the birth weight up there. We've got it here at the birth information. And this is very important information. We've got at fertility, scrotal circumference, and days to calving information. So have you submitted that circumferences, as well as the specific days to calving information. You will see the more complete you record, the higher it actually rewards you. And then for our specific information at docility, they give us a 5 out of 200 score. We do currently no value is given to structure, flight time, and DNA. That might change in the future. I know there's some societies looking to add some value in terms of residual feed intake testing. And then I'm going to take you guys back to this page. All right, so basically this gives you an indication of your complete score for that specific set of traits for the year. So for animal detail, for instance, in 2015, we've got a 49 out of 50, and I'm going to show you guys that why now. It also shows that trait, weight traits, carcasses, birth, fertility, and other traits. So if we take 2013, for instance, we've got 50 there and 55 and a 24 for carcass information and a 30 out of 30 for birth traits. At fertility, we're at about 26 and other traits we're at 5. So the sum of that is 187. And that score is given out of 200. So that within that table that I showed you guys underneath here, that's higher than 165, and that's why it's given as a 5-star for that specific year. All right, so now when they calculate your star rating, they take 5 years and they take the average on each one of those years and calculate the score from there. And then they'll give you the total score, and that gives you the specific star rating for that herd. Now, I want to show you guys here. We've submitted some data, but not all our data for 2017. So there is a few data sets that have not been submitted yet, specifically the 400-day traits and our carcass traits. It was already taken into account, and we just need to submit it into the system. So you see we've got only a score of 117 for that specific year. So it's taken into account, and we should have already submitted it. And that's why the score is a 3 there. Now, once we've submitted it, the system will take it into account, and it will change the entire setting here. But I want you guys to understand that the 2019 born calves, those were the calves that were born last year. So it's very easy to have all the animal data there as well as all of the birth data. But a lot of those animals, they have been weaned in, which would be for us, we specifically calf August to October, and we wean in March. So those calves have been weaned. So for our weaning information, we've got a little bit of data, but they have not had 400 days or the scanning data been collected from them. And that's why they don't take into account the last 2 years, because it's possible for you to perhaps calf in November, December, which would mean you will only be weaning in May to June the following year, which will mean that you will only be collecting data perhaps in April, January, the year after that. So they do allow for 2.5 years. And when they calculate 2017, usually completeness of performance data star rating is done once a year in around June, July. And it's done that time because then the calves that were born in December for that specific year, which would be 2017, have had ample time for recording. Okay, at this point, I just want to ask, is there anybody that has some questions here where we are now at this point? I just want to see. Okay, if there's any questions, please indicate for me, and I'll stop and I'll explain to you guys. But then Breedplan has a few of these tables that they show you indication of the recording. And you can have a look at that. That's just a visual representation. But for me, it's always good to have a look at these tables. So we see that this gives you the number of calves that were recorded for that specific year. It gives you the division between male and female calves, and it gives you that ratio. So I just want to show you guys that with Zorel, we record each and every one of the calves. So it is possible. 2015, we had a ratio of 1.13. And here we had a 1.21. And this year we had much more females. Last year, much more females that were born than males. So even if it's just 6, you can see what the effect is on that ratio. And that would mean actually that for this specific year, we did not receive all our marks because we were a bit out of range there. But it would probably have been only 1 or 2 marks. It would not have been much. So it's just something to keep in mind. So it gives you the date of birth, and it shows you that all the date of births have been submitted. This is something that I think is quite standard. Then we've got unique sires. We see that all the sire information have been recorded. It would seem that one of the calves born in 2009 does not have a sire. So we'll have to go back and see which one of the calves that is and why it is like that, as well as unique dams. And then you can see mating types. Natural calves that were born in 2016, the AI calves that were born, as well as the embryo transfer calves that were born. You will notice that recipient dam information only comes into play once you've got an embryo program up and running. So when we did not calve embryo calves, the recipient dam is not used within the calculation. All right, so we see here that we've got a low figure here. So from our side, we'll have to go and see why only 13 of the 21 dams have been registered. And what happens sometimes is you use commercial cattle for submitting information and or using them as recipients. And I'm sure if you guys have some more questions, you can address them to me or Azan or Michael accordingly regarding the recording of that. But basically it involves a cow which we have absolutely no information about. It's important that we try and get as much information from the recipient as possible. Possible year of birth, specific composition. But you might have animals weighing 700 kgs and animals weighing 550 kgs, which are both used as recipients, which would have a big effect on the ET calves. And that's why it's important for us to know as much information as possible on the recipient dam, because it would have a drastic effect on your ET calf. And remember, recipients are also used from season to season. So when you get a recipient calf, the cow that has had perhaps 3 or 4 or 5 recipient calves already, you start to generate information on that cow. And when we get to calf number 5 or 6, you will probably have a lot of information regarding weaning possibilities on that ET calf. And the system does that itself. So we can say thank you for the guys in Australia developing the system. So this just gives you an indication on the specific recording of sires and how complete it is. So on a visual side, you can see we've got immediately something there in 2009 and showed it to you guys there. This gives you a bit of an indication on the division on calves. So we've got about 50% of the calves being born naturally, and then another 20 from AI and about 35 from ET transfers. Just to give you a bit of feedback on your own herd. I mean, these reports going to be submitted for your own herd, and you'll be able to interpret on where you lie and how you're going about. Then I want to show you guys here this completeness of performance weight information table. And please feel free if you've got any questions to stop me, and I'll see if I can assist you guys. But basically, this shows you the first submission of data and the second. So the Breedplan system is capable of evaluating 2 observations for each specific trait. So that means, as Mr. Walters pointed out, that they might take 2 weaning weights. So they will probably bring in all the calves and weigh them at a specific time. And then perhaps 2 or 3 months later, they will wean them and they'll take a second weight. And the system will be able to incorporate that. So if you look at 2015, we submitted 41 female weights for the first weight and 30 for the second. And That's always given as a percentage. So as you guys saw up here in this table, when we look at no, excuse me. Here this percentage is. So it gives you 89% of that 46 was recorded. You go about and you'll be able to see which one of the data was not submitted. Now, you immediately see that there's good weaning weight recorded, but we have a drop off in the recording of 400-day weight. And that is because the selection criteria for a specific herd might be that they will select some of the calves out at 200 days after taking this recording. And they will throw a bit of the calves out, which will be culled perhaps, or some practices involve them making some of the bulls into oxen, which will also have an effect on the 400-day weight perhaps not being recorded. And so on also with this 600. You should also take into account that you do have calves dying in between these measurements and those measurements. So sometimes you don't record them because the calf just physically isn't there. If at all possible, we would always encourage you to try and keep them as long as possible and try and record them accordingly. So it just gives you an indication also on mature cow weights that have been recorded. And you remember Izan told you that there must be a certain point at which animals should be at a certain age for it to be recorded. So in 2015, we did have some animals which calved, which did not adhere to the mature cow weight rule. And you'll see that we did drop off there a bit. So yeah, that's just to show you a bit on the weights. I told you that the 217-day, 400-day weights have not been recorded, and you can see this here quite well. So when you take this report and you go about and you see, but the 2017 calves, we did weigh them, we did do carcass measurement on them, why aren't they on the system? And then you can trace back and see where the problem lies, and you can get the problem sorted as quickly as possible to get that information in and to get us some data back and see how it affects your EBVs. So this is just a visual representation of the graph that we used. It shows you this completeness here as well for scanning eye muscle areas that have been recorded. We've got rib fat, rump fat, and scanning. So you'll see, for instance, eye muscle areas recorded on 2018 calves. Well, what happened was, and you see this again with the 2017, we thought that it was submitted, and we submitted it, but it wasn't captured on the system. So we will be capturing that soon. But the 2018 data have been captured. So it shows that a lot of the females were captured and the males. And what happened here was we had 10 males of the 2018 system, which was sent for phase C testing or RFI testing. And their information was captured by the ARC at the station, and it was submitted to the society. And actually, this 2018 data is being captured at the moment. The office wrote me a letter a few days ago and said they've captured the females, but they haven't captured the males yet. The office is running at full capacity with a few other things at the moment. So it gives you a clear indication that you can see what's happening with your information and are they being utilized within your genetic evaluation. Again, schematic representation. And then if we get to birth weight, we've got calving ease information. And calving ease information is supposed to be very high because it's something that can be submitted with the birth information, which should also be high. AI date, it's very important that you've got a complete AI date. AI date is something which I mean, you know exactly when you've AI'd each one of the cows. Scrotal size is there, and then days to calving information, how's that been submitted? Then we've got just a representation of that again, and then the last one is the specific docility information. Remember, flight time is not recorded with us, neither structure or DNA. So you also see NFI. This is just a term they use for net feed intake. You see we've got submitted 10 bulls there, 15 bulls, 10 bulls, 10 bulls that were evaluated. So that just gives you an indication on that. All right, so just to take you guys back, the system will evaluate again on which one of these percentage you are. So to give you an idea, for instance, if we see docility, or let's work on something which we don't have a clear, at 2016 for scrotal, we submitted 53 scrotal circumferences of the 75, which amounted to a 71%. And if we go back to our system, we'll see that scrotal circumference counts mark out of 20, but we submitted 71%. So we will receive 8, and it'll go through the multiplier. It's 2. 8 times 2 is 16. So we would achieve a score of 16 out of 20. Okay, so just keep that in mind. We've accumulated 16 marks there for days to calving. That's for 2000, and we worked on 2016 days to calving. We had 100% mark there.
Eric, while you, I see Nikki has put up her hand. So.
Okay, I'll quickly answer Nikki now. I just want to finish this calculation.
Okay.
So we've got days to calving, which we got 100%, and more than 90 amounts to 10. And 10 times the multiplier is 10. So that would give us 10 marks plus the 16. That's 26 out of 30. And if we go back to our table up here for 2016, our fertility traits is a 26 out of 30. That's the 10 plus the 16, which amounts to that specific mark. Yes, Nikki?
Yeah, hi. A question regarding the animal traits, the recipient dam. What if you're not using embryos at all, so you don't have recipient dams? What do you receive none of that points allocation and get a 0, or do you receive the full amount? How does that work?
You'll receive the full amount. So just to give you an indication, I'm just going to verify it for you on this report. Let's take 2015. We had no recipients there. And if we look at recipient dam information, that's a 6.5. So we'll have to do the entire calculation. But 2015 for animal data, we've got a 6.25 mark there just to take into account. And if we go to 2015, we'll see that we scored 49 out of 50 for animal data. So we already see that there isn't a deduction of 6.25 marks. We received the full mark.
Okay, thank you. And then just quickly then on the animal ratio as well, why are you, if your ratio is out, that's nothing to do with management, whether you have more males or females. Is that, am I understanding correctly? Why are you then penalized if your ratio is not, is out?
Okay, so why that's done is that's to help societies a bit in management. The thing is, and we do see it sometimes in South Africa, that societies struggle a bit with having completeness of recording within specific herds. And you'll get breeders that do not record completely so that they can evade the per capita that's put up there.
Oh, so, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so we just put that in the completeness of performance for guys that perhaps they only record 10 of the 50 bull calves, and they sell a lot of them at the back end without paying per capita. So it's not a foolproof system. We see, for instance, in 2018, 124 calves born, 68 were males and 56 were females. We had a 1.21 ratio, which is actually, I think it's quite abnormal. Yeah, I think it has to do with a good year that we had, and you'll see that this does fluctuate a bit with seasons. Normally, you'll have a bit more females that are born in drier seasons. Yeah, you do get penalized for it. It's a small part of the complete 200-point package. I guess that's just the way the cookie crumbles.
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Any other questions, guys? Okay. Then I'm just going to, so you've got this report, and it's good to go about and see what's going on here. But now you might ask me, okay, well, let's look, for instance, at a specific problem that arises here. And we've got AI date in 2019. And we see, okay, I want to show you guys this. So we've got 24 female calves which were born from AI and 23 males. Oh, this is the amount of information that we have. And we see we've got a 96% and a 92. So we'll have to go back up to this point here. And we see that in 2019, we had 50 calves which were born from AI. So that means that it would seem that the information given here is correct. So we've got 3 animals here which do not have an AI date. And where do we start? Well, we've got 50 sets of data. And how do we know where the problem lies? So that's where that diagnostic report comes in, which I talked about earlier. I just want to confirm, can everybody see this report that I just showed you guys here? If there's anybody that can't see it. Okay. Okay, that sounds good. So this report, you guys will immediately see we've got 212 pages in this report. And this is the report that is used for reconciliation of the data that's been submitted to the data that you have on the system. So you'll see when we started out with the herd, that was in 2008, there were only a few animals and we only had a few births, up to 6 calves for the first year. And it'll immediately show you the specific information that was recorded. Okay, so if we run this down to 2019 born calves, there we have it. So you will see there all the 2019 born calves, which amounts to 3-4 pages at the moment. You'll see we had some natural born calves, and at the end of the season, some ET calves dropping, and in between we've got AI calves. And you can see this at the beginning of the season. We had a few cows that calved out of season naturally, and you'll see that on the calving date, it's not our normal calving season. And then our calving season actually started here in June, the 21st of June. And basically what happens with us is we've got a complete synchronization of all the cows with a fixed time AI, and then they're mated to the bulls for about 70 days. So if we put variation in there, our complete calving season is about 85 to 90 days. And you'll see that the first AI calves come in because we only have 1 day of AI, and they're put in there, 1 or 2 days, depending on the groups. And you'll see that we did some natural calves which were born in there as well. And it gives you the observation code. So they were all used the same. That gives you, it was all births which were unassisted. We see 1 calf there which was probably assisted. That's why it wasn't put in there. And we've got an easy pull there on that calf. It was an AI calf born from some imported genetics. And we've got the specific performance group. So you'll see that we submitted those few animals as ones, which for their birth time, they will be in their own slice group. And then we've got 2-3 months going ahead. And then we started with the new season, and that's also submitted as a 1, which means that from that 21, we will put 45 days on there, and all of the number 1s within that 45-day slice will be compared to each other for birth weight. We had a sick calf here. So you can see actually what happened was that cow there, it was a first-time calver, and she got grievously ill at about 7 months into her calving. So for the last 2 months of her being in calf, she lost about 200 to 220 kgs in weight. And that was in the last trimester, which had a big effect on the calf. So we just submitted that the calf's birth weight was probably not in line with the way that the rest of the cows were treated, because of the cow being severely sick. So the calf was probably depleted or kept from a lot of the what it needed to grow. You guys should excuse my English, but anyway. So we've got AI dates here, and now we can take this report and we can reconcile it with the information that we have on record in our specific information. So I'm quickly going to show you guys that. So here we've got one of the internal reports that we use, which gives us some of our specific information, and it'll show you our specific information that we recorded for the 2017 season on birth weight and which type of calf it is, performance group and calving ease, as well as the calf weight that we had. And now you can take this information and you can then again compare it to that specific information. So if you take, for instance, the 2019 your specific herds information that you use for recording, Izan, just confirm for me, you guys are seeing Excel spreadsheet at the moment?
Nee, ons sien nog die PDF.
Okay, I'll just quickly share with you guys that specific spreadsheet. Is it up and running now?
Nog nie. Dit ons doen nou.
I apologize for that. Okay, so this is the internal report that we use. It's just a spreadsheet to ensure that we know what's going on the farm. So we've got that entire group, and here we see which cows have been AI'd to which bull, as well as the specific AI date that was used. And what we can do now is we can take our internal report and we can compare it to the specific diagnostic report, which we've got up here, and we can look at the AI dates and we can reconcile this and immediately see which of the 3 dates aren't there. Okay, immediately we see here calf 1983. We've got an AI confirmed calf here, but it does not have the AI date in. Why is that? And we can see that the dam was LR 1352, and we can immediately go back to our internal report, and we can see if we've got the information, and it's supposed to be here with the 13s. 1352, yes, we see that she was AI'd on the 24th of the 10th month with granite, and we can resubmit this data to the society and ask them, please ensure that the information is on there. And then at the end of the month, when they do a rerun, you'll immediately see that it's been taken into account on your specific report. So yes, please, guys, ask me some questions. You'll see that this report is exceptionally long. It's 220 pages. Because this contains each and every one of the animals that's ever been put out on the system, as well as the specific information for that. So if you can see here, we've got some fertility traits.
Okay, Derek, I think we want to start winding up now.
Yes, so this shows you guys everything that you need, and you can ask this from the Society, the Completeness of Performance Diagnostic Report, and they will publish it on your internal section. So yes, that's everything from my side, guys. If there's anything else, please feel free, ask me some questions. I think we've come to the end of this, but this is just to give you an indication on what we're doing or what a herd should be doing. We've got information on our computers. The system has some of it, and you need to ensure that what you have and what you've recorded is on the system. Any questions, guys? Some questions? Anybody? Diewald, perhaps? Well, it would seem that's everything. Okay, Dolph is clapping his hands. He's not asking a question.
Derek has done a good job. I think Derek has done a good job. Simply, you could give him a hand clap there. I see Dolph has done that. Waar kry mens daai opsie is on? Om aan te klap.
You got it in screen.
And under your participation, all the names, and then you're getting there more.
Okay.
Go to more, you can get. Well, there's coffee or tea also, but that is not served, so you clap hands.
Good stuff. Okay, let's give Derek a hand clap here, I think, and Izan as well.
Yes, thank you, Izan. Thank you, Michael. I think at the end of the day, these things are important, and from each one of the breeders and the people involved, we just like to say thank you to Michael and Izan also for their contributions and putting up these courses. I think it means a lot for the industry.
Okay, and yes, they're all on YouTube in the channel called Livestock Registering Federation. So we will be sharing those links so that you can have a look at them as well. Okay, Izan, what is die volgende kursus? When and what is your next course?
The next one is next week, I think the 21st. Let me just confirm. It's going to be on Herdmaster, just the introduction course on Herdmaster and its functions. Sorry, I don't have the dates in front of me, but I think it's the 21st.
Okay, so if you've got any friends or any other farmers that you think that have got more than 50 cows, Derek will tell you once you've got more than 50 cows, a spreadsheet almost becomes impossible. And you need a herd management program for that. And you can run Excel, but Excel to keep all the screens together is impossible. So we'll just be giving an overview of Herdmaster for all those that would be keen to see that. Okay, so we'll see you next time and we'll let you know when the next courses are. Thank you very much. Bye, dankie julle almal.